So earlier this week, I finally beat Diablo IV. I say finally because I feel like I am the last person who bought this game to beat it. It seems like most people are inhaling the story and moving on into the far superior post-game content. This video is not going to be on said post-game content. I want to instead focus on everything that I played through. It's kind of the core experience of the game, and the reason why I feel like that is so very important to understand is because the base game is good, but it could have been better. And I feel almost kind of bad critiquing it because look at the lineage of Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 3. Very linear, very humdrum story, characters that were very, very one-dimensional, who serve very limited purposes, and at the end, did we really feel satisfied? I would say maybe the beginning of Diablo 2 is probably the best turn when your player character in Diablo 1 turns into Diablo, leading into the game. But outside of that, really just thinking back along all three of those games, yes, they were fun, but story-wise, they missed a lot. Diablo IV tries to remedy that, and I think to some extent they do okay. You are given a massive open world to explore, and if you actually just kind of play the golden path that is sticking from main story beat to main story beat, you're only going to see about 40% of the map. So there's a lot out there for you to uncover on your own. Major capital cities, major quest hubs, long, winding side quests with multiple parts through them, which will definitely help flesh out the universe. And I think by doing a lot of those missions, and I haven't done every single one, but I've done enough to kind of see that, yes, they are filling in the gaps, and you are going to meet other characters or other religions or other sects of people that exist out there that will make the whole world of Sanctuary feel much more lived in, which honestly, if you're talking an RPG, like, that's what we want, right? The problem I had with Diablo IV so much, though, was that it was a very stretched out experience. You ever heard that phrase, you took a great 30-minute movie and you turned it into like an hour-and-a-half movie? Or, you know, you took Minute Rice and made it like 7-minute rice? I'm sure you've heard some figure of speech like that before. This game suffers from that in so many regards. There are multiple parts to a quest where it will be literally walking from one end of the map to the other, fetching or clicking or doing random things that add very limited value to the story. And I think that they could have done a better job of kind of chewing out some of that fat and focusing on some of the main story beats. Now, in some instances, it is impactful for you to be the one to open a door or to, you know, set an item down, which triggers some cascading effect or some major significant milestone. Sure. But a lot of times it's just like, hey, go talk to character A, and then you run all the way across the map to talk to character A, and they're like, hey, thanks for checking on me. Can you go talk to character B now? And they turn around and go all the way back. And then character B says, oh, yeah, I left my my widget on the desk. Can you go get that? And you got to go. And it's just, you'll do this over and over and over again. And it's just like, fetch quest the game. And it's like, enough. Like, can we just get through this? Now, I did have a slightly different experience than others because I played the game 100% cooperatively with my wife. She hosted the game, although that shouldn't have mattered. It did. Maybe it's something that will be addressed in a future patch. Maybe it's not. But because she hosted the game and the game was in her world state, there were many connection issues that I had in her game. Now, again, this was not a LAN. We were both connected to the official Battle.net servers with our own unique profiles and all that stuff. But the game seems to not handle that very well, and I suffered lots of very weird loading issues and lots of very weird lagging throughout. Now, this didn't impact my gameplay, and it doesn't judge or have any bearing on my judgment of the game. It's just funny when you watch this cutscene where right before the cutscene begins, all the characters go into a T-pose, or all the characters teleport on top of each other in the center of the map, or the world vanishes and everybody falls through the sky or whatever. Like, it's doing these weird, like, networking things in the background. Again, it didn't impact my enjoyment of the game. I just thought it was humorous. But the big problem I had was that not both of us could advance story dialogue. Only one of us could. And it depended on who clicked on the quest giver first. So if my wife clicked on the quest giver first, she could read through the text. And sometimes the voice acting was very, very overly dramatic, where you would be able to read the lines of text on your screen in about a third of the time that it took for a character to overly dramatize each and every syllable. So you could just left click and blow through those very quickly. If I was the second person to talk to that quest giver, I had to sit and wait. And it just added even more monotony to all the other fetch questing that I had to do, that I had to listen to some of these characters overact very meaningless roles. And that was very frustrating. I don't think you'd have that experience if you were playing single player. Again, I would suspect a very large percentage of people only played the single player. I am definitely the outlier here, but it's just worth mentioning into my unique perspective. In terms of the story itself, once you get past a lot of the bloat, it was actually very good. I would say this was the best Diablo story yet, because there were lots of branching paths, not necessarily in like a choose your own adventure, but there were multiple things that had to be done in order to progress a story. You had two different characters working on something at once, which was a lot of fun. Additionally, you got a lot of introductions to a lot of potential spin-off characters. This wasn't just necessarily good versus evil. This was good versus good. This was evil versus evil. There were lots of players invested in this, and not all of them make it. Obviously, that's how these games go. Some people aren't going to survive. But the ones that did, I think, had most impact in the story. And it definitely leads to potential DLC or story elements or additional side quests that really flesh out some of these other characters and some of these other groups that I think made the game a lot of fun. In terms of the power level, in terms of the feeling of starting as a nobody and essentially working your way through the story to become a badass, it was great. Lots and lots of choices in how you want to build your character. There's really no wrong way. There's lots of guides on there online about, the best way to min and max a character. That's not necessary. Just pick what you like and you'll be fine. Yes, you might not kill things as fast, but I don't think there's such thing as like a bad build. The game doesn't really let you do that because it does kind of gate your progression by you having to put so many points in a particular skill tree before moving to the next hub or the next, I guess they're like branches if you want to think of it that way, like a skill tree. And I like that because it forces you to kind of slowly understand the skill that you have. Respeccing is very easy. Pieces of gear sometimes help, sometimes don't. The biggest criticism with that power curve definitely is legendaries. They don't feel very legendary. It's not until later on in the game, post main story, do you get into these unique items. Those absolutely change your gameplay. But if you're thinking of like more of a legendary or something that you had in like Diablo 1 or 2 or 3, a piece of gear that you would pick up that would suddenly change your skills and your core, enjoyment of the game, those don't exist. Instead, you are presented with layers and layers of complex systems, which are awesome if you want to spend time investing in them and understanding how they work and making sure that the right procs hit other procs, that you are in a particular state to be able to do something to get extra damage or some sort of bonus ability that you might not otherwise have. That's awesome. I love that layer of complexity. It shouldn't be a requirement. And I think if you want to be good in this game, not just adequate, but good, to be able to progress into World Tier 3, to be able to be competitive against the world bosses, to be able to be competitive in the nightmare dungeons, you absolutely have to understand that skill. And the game does not do a good job of kind of helping you understand that. It is very complex, and that is why there are a litany of YouTube guides and websites and blog posts and build guides, and people are relying on them much more so than I've seen in other games before. And I think that's a big disservice. I think a system can sometimes be overly complex, maybe too much. It should be dialed back some. Yes, you'll always have the min-maxers. Yes, you'll always have the people who are trying to find the ultimate perfect build with the best piece of gear, with the best roll, the guys who are grinding for hours and hours on end. But you do find a very big skill gap between the haves and the have-nots, and that is frustrating. And depending on the skill, or depending on the character you are playing, regardless of your particular skill level, being able to dodge out of enemy attacks and being able to understand your weapon rotation or your skill rotation, you may still find yourself at a massive disadvantage because the game is not quite balanced yet. So I know it sounds like I'm being overly critical on the game, and it's just because I love this game and I know what it can be. And I know, like with other Diablos, this will be something that they strive for year after year after year. Look back at what Diablo II was by the time that the expansion finished, and look at how different that game was. Look at the beginning launch of Diablo III versus where that game ended up. Radically different. I have no doubt in my mind that Diablo IV will eventually evolve into a masterpiece. It's not quite there yet. The story beats will never be patched or fixed. Maybe more side content or quests or additional things can be added to help progress the quality of life. However, the bones of the game are what they are, and I think they're good, but they can be better. And I know one day they will be. I ultimately like Diablo IV. It's a game that I was really happy to play through with my wife from beginning to end. And now as we begin to progress into post-game content and really understanding what that looks like, it's been a lot of fun. I do recommend this game. We're playing on PC. Obviously, it's available pretty much everywhere on every platform. If you're interested in this type of action RPG, give this one a go. It is definitely much darker, grittier, gorier, more violent than Diablo 3. And for all of those reasons, I am so happy, because Diablo 3 definitely took a step back in the aesthetics, and Diablo 3 definitely took a step back in the significance of the violence. And I think this game really nails it. So good job, Activision Blizzard. I'm happy that you guys were able to release something that you're proud of. We didn't have a lot of server issues. Yes, there are some issues, as I mentioned, but when you look at this game being in an online space, being able to have cross-play and cross-progression, with all the things that it does kind of out of the box, so to speak, it is pretty impressive. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.